Before you spend another old penny, take a second look. Some wheat pennies may look completely ordinary, but certain dates can attract serious attention from collectors, and most people never think twice before dropping them into a jar or spending them. In this countdown, we're uncovering 10 wheat pennies that deserve a much closer look, and the first one may be hiding in a collection right now. Let's begin. Coin number 1. Imagine opening an old coin jar and finding a date that quietly takes you back to 1940, a time when America was on the edge of a completely different chapter in its history. Most people would see an old brown penny and move on, but collectors know that the date alone can be enough to make them stop and look much closer. This is the 1940 wheat penny struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which means there is no mint mark beneath the date. That missing letter isn't an error. It simply identifies the coin as a standard Philadelphia issue. In 1940, America was producing these cents for everyday commerce, and millions entered circulation. But after more than 8 decades, attractive survivors are a different story. Turn it over and you'll see the classic wheat reverse. 2 wheat ears framing the inscriptions 1 cent and United States of America with E pluribus unum above. Flip it back and Abraham Lincoln faces right beneath the words, "In God we trust," with liberty and the date 1940 completing the design. This cent was made from the traditional bronze composition used for the era, primarily copper with tin and zinc, and it weighs about 3.11 grams, measures approximately 19 millimeters across, and is about 1.52 millimeters thick. The edge is plain, not reeded. Now here's where your particular example gets interesting. You describe this coin as having a dark black shade with green dots and an old appearance. Collectors will pay close attention to the surface because condition can dramatically change how a coin is viewed. Original surfaces, remaining detail, color, and overall preservation all matter. At the same time, unusual discoloration or spots should never automatically be treated as a sign of rarity. For the market figure you're using in this video, this example is listed at $198,600. That's an extraordinary figure, so collectors would want the coin carefully authenticated, professionally evaluated, and graded before treating that number as a confirmed market value. Auction activity and verified sales records are what ultimately establish what a specific coin is actually worth. So before you dismiss an old wheat penny because it looks dark or worn, check the date, mint mark area, lettering, surfaces, and overall condition. Collectors continue searching for well-preserved examples, and attractive original coins become harder to find with every passing year. Do not spend this coin. Never clean it. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and reduce collector appeal. Original surfaces matter, and professional grading may be worthwhile for an exceptional specimen. And remember, this is only the first stop in our countdown. The next wheat penny brings another date that collectors have learned not to overlook, and the reason may surprise you. Coin number 2. Some old coins tell their story through their date, while others reveal it through the surfaces they carried through decades of circulation. That's exactly why a 1944 wheat penny deserves a second look. At first glance, it may seem like just another old cent, but the details collectors notice can tell a very different story. This 1944 wheat penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, so there is no mint mark beneath the date. That absence is completely normal for a Philadelphia issue. These cents were produced for everyday American commerce during the final years of World War II, when the country was still deeply involved in the war effort, and pennies were constantly moving through stores, cash registers, and pockets. The obverse features Abraham Lincoln facing right, surrounded by "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1944. Turn it over and you'll find the familiar wheat reverse, with two wheat ears surrounding 1 cent and United States of America, while E pluribus unum appears above. The coin has the traditional bronze composition of the period, weighing about 3.11 grams, measuring approximately 19 millimeters in diameter and about 1.52 millimeters thick, with a plain edge. Its basic specifications are common to the standard wheat cent of this era, which means the real collector interest comes from the individual coin and its preservation. Your example is described as having brown spots, a brown layer across the reverse, green dots, and an old appearance. Those surfaces are exactly where a careful collector would begin inspecting. They would look closely at the date, mint mark area, lettering, Lincoln's details, the wheat lines, and whether the surfaces appear original or have been altered. For this video, the stated collector market value is $186,500, a figure that high should always be treated carefully and verified through professional authentication, grading, and documented auction results. Certain specimens have sold for impressive prices, but condition, originality, and buyer demand can make a major difference from one coin to another. Collectors continue searching for examples like this because every surviving wheat penny has spent decades moving through American history. Attractive original examples become harder to find, and demand remains strong for coins with desirable preservation and genuine collector appeal. So if you find a 1944 wheat penny, don't casually toss it back into circulation. Do not spend this coin. Never clean it. Cleaning can permanently damage the surface, and original surfaces matter. If the coin appears exceptional, professional grading may be worthwhile. And now the countdown moves forward, because another old wheat penny is waiting, and its date could make you look at your collection very differently. Coin number 3. Here's a date many people would walk right past without a second thought: 1952. But when you add the right mint mark, the right history, and a coin that has survived more than 7 decades, suddenly that ordinary-looking cent deserves a much closer inspection. This is the 1952 wheat penny with a D mint mark, meaning it was struck at the Denver Mint. That small D beneath the date is one of the first things collectors check. It tells you where the coin was produced, and for wheat penny collectors, the combination of date and mint mark is an essential part of identifying the issue. America in 1952 was changing rapidly. The Korean War was still underway, television was becoming part of everyday life, and American businesses needed millions of pennies for ordinary transactions. These cents were made to circulate, passing through countless hands before eventually disappearing into jars, drawers, old family collections, and forgotten boxes. Look closely at the front. Abraham Lincoln faces right with "In God We Trust" above him, "Liberty" to the left, and 1952 with the D mint mark below. On the reverse, the classic wheat ears frame, 1 cent and United States of America, while "E pluribus unum" sits above. Like other wheat cents of this era, it was made from a bronze alloy primarily consisting of copper with tin and zinc. It weighs about 3.11 grams, measures roughly 19 millimeters across, is about 1.52 millimeters thick, and has a plain edge. Now look at the coin you've described. The reverse has a dark brown layer and an old, aged appearance. That's where the careful inspection begins. Collectors look at the date, the D mint mark, Lincoln's portrait, the lettering, wheat details, surface quality, and how much original detail remains. Condition matters because millions of these coins were made, but genuinely attractive surviving examples are a much smaller group. For this video, the stated collector market value is $172,900. That figure should always be verified against professional grading and documented auction results because actual market prices depend heavily on authenticity, preservation, eye appeal, and collector demand. Certain specimens have sold for impressive prices, while ordinary circulated examples can be worth far less. So if a 1952 with D appears in your old collection, don't assume it's just another brown penny. Collectors continue searching for examples like this, and attractive original surfaces become harder to find. Do not spend this coin. Never clean it. Cleaning can permanently damage the surface, and original surfaces matter. If your example looks unusually well preserved, professional grading may be worthwhile. But don't stop checking your collection yet. The next date in this countdown brings another completely different chapter of wheat penny history, and there's a reason collectors still pay close attention to it. Coin number 4. Sometimes the coins that catch your attention aren't the ones that look shiny. They're the ones that make you stop and ask, how did this little piece of copper survive all these years? That's the question worth asking when you come across a 1957 wheat penny with a D mint mark. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint, and that small D beneath the date immediately tells collectors where it came from. In 1957, America was deep into the post-war boom. Families were buying new products, highways were expanding, and everyday commerce still depended heavily on small denomination coins like this one. These pennies were made for circulation, and millions passed through American hands. On the front, Abraham Lincoln faces right beneath, "In God we trust." To his left is liberty, while the date 1957 and the D mint mark appear below. Flip it over, and the familiar wheat design appears, with 2 wheat ears surrounding 1 cent and United States of America. Above them is E pluribus unum. The standard wheat cent of this era was made from a bronze alloy primarily containing copper with tin and zinc. It weighs about 3.11 grams, measures approximately 19 millimeters in diameter, is around 1.52 millimeters thick, and has a plain edge. Now take a closer look at the example you're holding. You've described this one as having a gray layer and fine condition. That's important because collectors don't judge an old penny by its date alone. They examine the surfaces, remaining detail, lettering, Lincoln's portrait, the wheat lines, the date, and especially that tiny D mint mark. They also want to know whether the surface appears original or has been cleaned or altered. For this video, the stated collector market value is $154,600. A number like that should always be verified with professional authentication, grading, and documented auction activity. Certain specimens have sold for impressive prices, but the actual value of any individual coin depends heavily on preservation, originality, demand, and what buyers are willing to pay. And that's why this coin deserves your attention. Attractive original examples become harder to find as time passes, while collectors continue searching through old collections, jars, inherited albums, and forgotten boxes. If you find a 1957 with D, slow down before putting it back with ordinary change. Do not spend this coin. Never clean it. Cleaning can permanently damage the surface, and original surfaces matter. If the coin appears genuinely exceptional, professional grading may be worthwhile. But we're not done yet. The next stop in this countdown brings another wheat penny whose date carries its own collector story, and you'll want to see why it made the list. Coin number 5. A coin can spend decades looking completely ordinary before one careful collector finally decides to stop and examine it. That's what makes a 1953 wheat penny with a D mint mark so interesting. It isn't about a flashy mistake or an unusual design. It's about the date, the mint, the surviving condition, and what decades of circulation did to the coin. This cent was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small d beneath the date. In 1953, America was still living through the Korean War era, while post-war manufacturing and consumer life were rapidly expanding. Pennies like this were produced for everyday transactions and could pass through thousands of hands before disappearing into someone's collection. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln faces right beneath, "In God we trust." The word liberty appears beside him, while 1953 and the D mint mark sit below. Turn the coin over, and you'll see the classic wheat reverse, featuring 2 wheat ears around 1 cent and United States of America with a pluribus unum above. The coin uses the traditional bronze composition of the period, primarily copper with tin and zinc. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, measures about 19 millimeters in diameter, is roughly 1.52 millimeters thick, and has a plain edge. Now look at the condition you've described. Brown spots with black and green dots and darker coloration across the reverse, plus a circulated appearance. This is exactly where collectors need to slow down. They inspect the date first, then the D mint mark, lettering, Lincoln's portrait, wheat details, and the overall surface. They also want to understand whether the color and surface are original or the result of environmental exposure or later treatment. For this video, the stated collector market value is $170,200. A figure at that level should never be assumed from appearance alone. Professional authentication, grading, and documented auction activity are essential for determining whether a particular specimen can command anything close to such a figure. Certain specimens have sold for impressive prices, but actual market value varies significantly with preservation, originality, eye appeal, and demand. That's why this old cent is worth checking carefully. Collectors continue searching for examples like this, while attractive original survivors become harder to find. Many people unknowingly spend coins like this simply because they never look closely at the date and mint mark. So if you uncover a 1953 with D wheat penny, pause before spending it. Do not spend this coin. Never clean it. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface, and original surfaces matter. If the coin appears exceptional, professional grading may be worthwhile. And the countdown isn't slowing down. The next wheat penny takes us to another date with a story collectors won't want to overlook. Coin number 6. What if the old penny sitting quietly in a drawer has been there since the years when America was still finding its footing after World War II? That's the kind of history you're holding when you come across a 1946 wheat penny, a coin that may look ordinary until you start examining the details collectors actually care about. This was a Philadelphia Mint issue, so there is no mint mark beneath the date. In 1946, America was transitioning from wartime production back toward peacetime life. Factories were changing, soldiers were returning home, and everyday commerce was moving forward. Pennies like this were made to keep that everyday economy running, passing from one person to another for years. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln faces right beneath, "In God we trust." Liberty appears beside his portrait, while the date 1946 sits below. Flip it over, and the familiar wheat reverse shows 2 wheat ears surrounding 1 cent and United States of America, with a pluribus unum above. The standard bronze cent of this era was made primarily from copper, along with tin and zinc. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, measures about 19 millimeters in diameter, is around 1.52 millimeters thick, and carries a plain edge. Your example has brown spots, a black dot, and brown and black spots across the reverse, with an almost fine, circulated condition. That's where a collector's eye becomes important. Start with the date, then check the mint mark area, lettering, Lincoln's facial details, the wheat ears, and the amount of remaining detail. After that, examine the surfaces carefully. Original color and natural aging can matter, while harsh cleaning or artificial treatment can hurt collector appeal. For this video, the stated collector market value is $178,300. That is a claimed market figure that should be independently verified through professional authentication, grading, and documented auction records. Certain specimens have sold for impressive prices, but actual value depends on the individual coin's authenticity, condition, originality, demand, and buyer interest. And that's the important lesson with an old wheat penny like this. Don't judge it in 2 seconds. Collectors continue searching for surviving examples, and attractive original coins become harder to find as time passes. Many people unknowingly spend coins like this because they never stop to inspect the date. So if 1946 appears on an old wheat penny in your collection, take a closer look. Do not spend this coin. Never clean it. Original surfaces matter, and professional grading may be worthwhile if the coin appears especially promising. We're moving deeper into the countdown now, and the next wheat penny brings another date that could make you rethink the coins hiding in your collection. Coin number 7. There's something different about finding a penny that has already lived through nearly a century of American history. You're not just looking at an old piece of change, you're looking at a coin that was already circulating when the country was still recovering from the Great Depression. That's what makes a 1936 wheat penny worth stopping for. This Philadelphia Mint issue carries no mint mark, which is completely normal for a coin struck there. In 1936, America was still dealing with the effects of the Depression, while the economy was beginning to recover. Pennies were needed for everyday purchases, so coins like this were produced and sent into circulation across the country. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln faces right beneath "In God We Trust." Beside him is liberty, while the date 1936 appears below. Turn it over, and the classic wheat reverse displays 2 wheat ears surrounding 1 cent and United States of America, with E pluribus unum above. The standard wheat cent was made from bronze, primarily copper, with tin and zinc. It weighs about 3.11 grams, measures roughly 19 millimeters in diameter, is approximately 1.52 millimeters thick, and has a plain edge. Now consider the surfaces you've described: a gray layer, a black dot, and another gray layer across the reverse, with the coin in fine condition. Those details deserve careful inspection. Collectors typically begin with the date, then check the mint mark area, lettering, Lincoln's portrait, and the wheat ears. They also examine the surfaces for remaining detail, originality, discoloration, cleaning, and signs of damage. For this video, the stated collector market value is $217,800. That's an exceptionally high claimed figure and should never be accepted without verification. Professional authentication, grading, and documented auction results are critical because actual prices can vary dramatically depending on condition, originality, eye appeal, and collector demand. Certain specimens have sold for impressive prices, but every individual coin must stand on its own. And that's why an old 1936 deserves your attention. Survival rarity becomes more meaningful when you're looking at nearly 90 years of history, and attractive original examples become harder to locate. Many people unknowingly spend old wheat pennies simply because they never checked the date. So if you discover this date in an old collection, slow down. Do not spend this coin. Never clean it. Original surfaces matter, and professional grading may be worthwhile if the coin appears especially promising. The countdown is getting more interesting from here. The next wheat penny brings another date, another chapter of American history, and another reason to inspect those old coins before they're gone. Coin number 8. Sometimes the most interesting thing about an old coin is how well it has survived. A penny that spent decades moving through American commerce can look completely different from the day it left the mint. But when the date is 1958 and that little D is sitting beneath it, collectors have a reason to take a closer look. This is a 1958 wheat penny with a D mint mark, showing that it was struck at the Denver Mint. By this time, America was entering the late 1950s, a period of expanding suburbs, growing consumer culture, and rapid technological change. Yet everyday purchasers still relied on humble copper cents like this one. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln faces right with "In God We Trust" above him. Liberty appears beside his portrait, while 1958 and the D mint mark sit below. Flip it over, and you'll find the final years of the classic wheat reverse, with 2 wheat ears surrounding 1 cent and United States of America, while a pluribus unum appears above. The coin was made from the traditional bronze alloy of the period, primarily copper with tin and zinc. It weighs about 3.11 grams, measures approximately 19 millimeters in diameter, is around 1.52 millimeters thick, and has a plain edge. Now, look at the example you've described. A dark brown layer, beautiful overall appearance, and very fine condition. That combination makes the surfaces especially important. Collectors will inspect the date first, then the D mint mark, Lincoln's portrait, the lettering, and the wheat details. They'll also look closely for remaining detail, natural color, surface quality, and signs of cleaning or damage. For this video, the stated collector market value is $149,300. A number like that must be independently verified through professional authentication, grading, and documented auction activity. Certain specimens have sold for impressive prices, but the value of an individual coin depends heavily on condition, originality, eye appeal, market demand, and what collectors are willing to pay. And there's another reason this date is interesting. 1958 marks the final year of the wheat penny design before the Lincoln Memorial reverse arrived in 1959. That gives this coin a special place in the story of the series, even though we're treating this example strictly as a standard issue. If one turns up in your collection, don't rush past it. Do not spend this coin. Never clean it. Original surfaces matter, and professional grading may be worthwhile for a particularly well-preserved example. The countdown is almost at its final stretch now. One more old wheat penny is waiting ahead, and its date brings another reason to start checking those forgotten coin jars and collections. Coin number 9. Before you put another old penny back into a jar, take a closer look at the date. Sometimes the most overlooked coins are the ones that have quietly survived decades of everyday American life. That brings us to 1947, a year when the country was rebuilding after World War II, and millions of ordinary transactions still depended on coins exactly like this. This is a 1947 wheat penny with no mint mark, identifying it as a Philadelphia Mint issue. That missing letter is not a mistake. It simply tells collectors where the coin was produced. These cents were made for everyday commerce, passing through stores, pockets, cash registers, and countless hands before eventually finding their way into old collections. Look at the obverse, and you'll see Abraham Lincoln facing right beneath, "In God We Trust." Liberty appears beside him, while the date 1947 is positioned below. Turn it over, and the classic wheat reverse shows 2 wheat ears surrounding 1 cent and United States of America with E pluribus unum above. Like other standard wheat cents from this period, it was made from bronze, primarily copper with tin and zinc. It weighs about 3.11 grams, measures approximately 19 millimeters in diameter, is around 1.52 millimeters thick, and has a plain edge. Your example has brown spots, a green dot, another green dot on the reverse, and an almost fine circulated condition. Those surface details deserve careful attention. Collectors inspect the date first, then the mint mark area, lettering, Lincoln's portrait, and the wheat ears. They also examine the color and surface to determine whether the appearance is natural and original or affected by environmental exposure, corrosion, or cleaning. For this video, the stated collector market value is $175,600. That figure should be independently verified through professional authentication, grading, and documented auction activity. Certain specimens have sold for impressive prices, but actual value can vary dramatically depending on preservation, originality, eye appeal, collector demand, and the individual coin's verified grade. That's why you should never judge an old wheat penny too quickly. Collectors continue searching for surviving examples, and attractive original examples become harder to find. Many people unknowingly spend coins like this simply because they never check the date. If you find 1947 on an old wheat penny, set it aside and inspect it carefully. Do not spend this coin. Never clean it. Original surfaces matter, and professional grading may be worthwhile if the coin appears promising. Now we're down to the final coin of this countdown. The last date is waiting, and after seeing everything we've uncovered so far, you definitely won't want to overlook it. Coin number 10. The final coin in this countdown brings us to a date that every serious wheat penny collector recognizes immediately, 1955. But don't rush to conclusions. We're treating this as a standard issue coin, so the real story is in the date, the mint, the condition, the surfaces, and the collector interest surrounding the individual piece. This is a 1955 wheat penny with no mint mark, meaning it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. That missing mint mark is completely normal. In 1955, America was deep into the post-war economic boom. New homes, new cars, expanding businesses, and growing consumer spending were changing everyday life, while pennies like this continued serving their basic purpose in stores and cash registers across the country. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln faces right beneath "In God We Trust." Liberty appears beside his portrait, and the date 1955 is positioned below. Turn it over, and you'll see the familiar wheat reverse, with 2 wheat ears framing 1 cent and United States of America, while E pluribus unum appears above. This standard wheat cent was made from bronze, primarily copper, with tin and zinc. It weighs about 3.11 grams, measures roughly 19 millimeters across, is approximately 1.52 millimeters thick, and has a plain edge. Now look at the example we're examining. You've described it as having a dark brown layer, a beautiful overall appearance, and fine condition. That's where collectors slow down. They inspect the date, the mint mark area, Lincoln's portrait, the lettering, the wheat ears, and the surfaces. They want to know how much original detail remains and whether the color and texture appear natural or have been affected by cleaning or environmental exposure. For this video, the stated collector market value is $167,500. That is a claimed figure that should always be verified with professional authentication, grading, and documented auction records. Certain specimens have sold for impressive prices, but actual market value depends on authenticity, grade, preservation, originality, eye appeal, and current collector demand. And remember, 1955 is also an important date in the Wheatpenny story, making it a date many collectors naturally pay attention to. That doesn't mean every 1955 cent is extremely valuable, but it absolutely means you should inspect one carefully before dismissing it. If this date appears in your collection, don't casually spend it. Do not spend this coin. Never clean it. Original surfaces matter, and professional grading may be worthwhile if the coin is genuinely well preserved. We've reached the end of our 10-coin journey, but your own collection could be where the real discovery begins. Check those old jars, albums, drawers, and inherited collections. You never know which overlooked date deserves a second look. If you enjoyed the hunt, like this video, subscribe to Hidden Coin Millions and share it with another collector. Comment Rare Coins Hunter if you're still watching. I want to know who the real treasure hunters are.